It's Thursday, 11 o'clock. It's time for this week's watch drop. So we've just moved into our new headquarters in Farringdon, London, and I found a little quiet corner of the office to do the drop video from today. So please excuse the slightly different setup that we've got. I want to really dig into a couple of watches that will be going live this Thursday. Some really special pieces hitting the website that I want to run through in detail. The first watch I want to talk about this week is a really interesting Parmigiani Floria. I think it's quite an early example, and why it jumps out to me, well, this exact model is the watch that King Charles wears. I don't know if that's interesting to anyone else, but certainly for me, it's quite interesting to sort of try on his shoes for a moment and put it on wrist and feel the way that he does when he puts his watch on in the mornings. There are a couple of differences with this model and the one that he wears. His is yellow gold. It's a lighter dial, whereas this is rose gold, and it has a sort of panda type dial with light subdials and black main sort of dial color. When I look at it, it sort of reminds me a little bit of the early generation of Lange 1815 chronographs that came in that rose gold and black color combination. The interesting thing about this watch, though, is that it has an El Primero, Zenith El Primero movement in it. And although it might have been finished somewhat differently to those that make their way into Zeniths, it is pretty much off the shelf. So it's got that really high beat rate that you get with an El Primero. When you click the chronograph, you really do realize how quickly that thing moves around. It's almost like a sort of spring drive movement from Grand Seiko. It's a very clean sweep to it. The action on the chronograph is brilliant. I love it. And I think it's really interesting. Normally, I'm not one that agrees with a date window that's anywhere apart from maybe 6 o'clock or 3 o'clock. But on this one, it's positioned at 1:30. And I don't know why it tickles me. I don't think it puts me off the dial at all. I think it's still really, really interesting. You've got a lovely mix of finishes to the dial. You've got guilloche, you've got different colours, you've got applied Breguet indices. I think the most striking characteristic of this watch is that you have this sort of coin finish bezel that is stepped 3 layers, I think, down to the mid case. And then again, almost symmetrically on the case back, you have those 3 steps which are also finished with a coin edge. And it's interesting, I've never really seen that before. Often with the dress watches that we see, and we've got a few around the table here, the focus of the design is what you look at when it's on your wrist. And very rarely do watchmakers think about the reverse side of the watch and how that appears. So it's quite refreshing to see it, really. It really gives it a lot of character, a lot of interest. I don't blame King Charles for choosing this when presumably he can choose pretty much any watch he wants. It's a really lovely thing. And I'm sure now that Parmigiani, or at least the earlier Parmigiani models, are starting to pick up interest in the market, I think this one won't hang along for very long at all. I sort of alluded to the fact that if you're king for the day, you probably have access to any watch that you want. And one watch that isn't available to mere mortals is this Platinum Daytona, reference 126576 TBR. Now, that reference isn't one that you'll probably hear very often, not only because it's a very rare reference, but also because it's an off-catalogue piece from Rolex. So if you go through the website, you're not going to be able to spot this at all. For me, when I think of the Daytona or the Platinum Daytona, you think of exclusivity. It's a very expensive, very heavy, quite showy watch. This example with a baguette bezel, and I think each individual baguette diamond on this bezel is probably worthy of an engagement ring on its own. I don't know how I feel about it, really. I've never seen one before. I wish I could wear a watch like this. down to the field or the common or to the pub even. I'm not sure I'm brave enough, but I'd love to think that there's a time when this watch just is the perfect watch for a sunny day occasion where certainly you're going to capture the eyes and the interest from people around you because it's such a special thing. And I would challenge anyone at that event to go and try and find one themselves because they really can't. You've got to be a VVIP to Rolex to be able to get your name down on one of these. And I guess you've also got to be a very successful person too, because it's certainly not cheap, but it is a special watch and I'm really happy to have it in my hand. I'm sort of taken aback by all of the diamonds. I don't know what the total weight of diamonds on this thing is, but it's a lot. And the total weight of platinum too. What a thing. What a thing. Very, very special watch indeed. The next watch I want to talk about today is a very special Audemars Piguet Royal Oak. This is the reference 15407 ST. Now, a Royal Oak on its own is a very special thing. I've talked time and time again about how the bracelet is finished to such a degree that you have this almost jewellery-esque feel to these watches when you have them on wrist. But this is a comparatively rare model, which is skeletonized. It's not just your everyday skeletonized AP. This is what's called a double balance. And I love the fact that that is every bit of haute horlogerie. There's a very high degree of watchmaking that goes into these pieces. So it's absolutely a holy trinity piece. And they call it the double balance because on the 7, 8, 9 o'clock area of the skeletonized dial, you've got this bright yellow gold balance bridge which supports the double balance in itself. And if you compare this model to the earlier reference, I forget, 15305 possibly, it doesn't have that, whereas this one wants to call out to everyone the fact that it's a watchmaking step above. It's a really special watch. I love the amount of attention to detail that Audemars Piguet puts into their skeleton watches, and they always have done since the days of the skeletonized pocket watches that we've talked about previously. This is an amalgamation of the history of that brand and a cutting-edge steel, razor-sharp case and bracelet. It's kind of that perfect cocktail of interest to anyone that loves the brand, and I certainly do. It's a very special watch and just comes together so well. It's the first one that I've ever held in my hand, and I don't think it'll hang around for very long. I mentioned that there are a lot of special watches on the table this week, and one that I'm really pleased to see is a Piaget Polo 8131 in white gold. Not just white gold, it's also got an onyx dial. So it's really, really special. Now, I think it was only last week that we were talking about the 7131 in yellow gold, possibly the week before. It was all a bit of a blur. Now, this is the slightly smaller size. I think it's 20 millimeters across from side to side. But you have that monolithic bracelet and case design that you have in all of the polos. But white gold is something that was used so rarely back in the day. I mean, I've scoured for years looking for these models, the polos, but particularly the white gold ones, because I would imagine for every 10 yellow gold polo, there's probably one, maybe a half of the white gold variants. They really are that rare. And why weren't they that popular? Well, I think back in the day, in the late 70s, early 80s, Piaget were really trying to produce a watch that was a way of declaring how wealthy, and I guess it was a power play watch. And so when you've got a white gold watch that's as valuable as a yellow gold equivalent, it's kind of ironic. You know, in every bit, it's as expensive, probably more expensive, but yet your everyday person that sees you and meets you for dinner might just assume that it's a steel piece, certainly not as valuable as a precious metal variant would be, the one that people just, I guess, don't spot, that sort of fades into the background like a sort of steel bangle or something. It's really interesting, and it's always been one of the ones that you look back in the historic catalogues from Piaget, and this watch is one that's always jumped out to me as the most interesting. So that's this week's drop. Over 75 watches hitting the website, and I've just touched on a few of my favourites while we're setting up here in our new headquarters in Farringdon. You'll be seeing a lot more of this place going forward, and we've got lots of things planned. But in the meantime, hit our website, check out the drop, and I'll see you next time.